All right, everybody, here we are for episode 119 of Now Showing with Mike and Wayne. This episode will debut the day after Thanksgiving. So happy holidays to everybody who's listening to this on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. We hope you had lots of plentiful turkey and drink and wine and dessert.
May your bloat be minimal.
Yes.
Hopefully,
Hopefully,
I can tell you right now, even though we've recorded this beforehand, I am suffering from the tryptophan.
yes, just know that both of us right now are probably having a difficult time the next morning. So we're going to start getting into holiday films. We got a holiday film that we're going to review today. And then we'll get into, so we're going to talk about some other holiday films. Some we've already talked about before, but again, there's so many movies out there. We're going to touch down on multiple ones on multiple different occasions. So Wayne, why don't you get us started here with your holiday film of the day, the first one that you want to talk about?
Since we're just talking about, holiday films, I'm going to stick to mainly Christmas because that's really the topic of today's review. Obviously, we're reviewing a Christmas Story Christmas. So, and I know I'm not going to touch too much on it right now, but, going into this, my biggest fear was we were going to get another crappy Home Alone type version like we reviewed last year. And I think that was probably our lowest reviewed feature topic ever. So I'm scared going into it. I was scared going into it, and I got thoughts. So, but yeah, no, you know what? I am going to throw it back to one of my favorite ones. We're going all the way back to 1946 with "It's a Wonderful Life." So, this is the story of George Bailey, a man who has always been selfless, who always put the needs of others first. Gosh, it's so hard to do a synopsis of this and break it all down. So,
the man who wants to kill himself.
An angel is sent from heaven to help a desperately frustrated businessman by showing him what life would be like if he had never existed.
Also, the story of Family Man with Nick Cage and Don Cheadle. I saw that movie first before I saw this one.
I do love Family Man a lot.
I do too. I'm a fan.
Underrated. Let me just pull up the list here for "It's a Wonderful Life" so we can give everybody their justice. Yeah, this is always one of the things I use when you have to do these about you. It's like, tell us something interesting about yourself. Well, one of my favorite holiday movies is from 1946. Oh, wow, that's so deep. No, it's not. It's one that if you were around our age, it was on 24 hours a day on Christmas. And everybody really got sick of it.
It's basically one channel, you could have A Christmas Story, and then that would end, and you go to another channel, and It's a Wonderful Life is on, basically.
And yeah, in our family, it would be on as background noise because we'd be busy throughout the day. So, all right, flip it. Go to the other one now. All right, here we go. So, this is directed by Frank Capra. Writers are Francis Goodrich, Albert Hackett, and Frank Capra has a screenplay credit as well. Starring Jimmy Stewart as George Bailey, Donna Reed as Mary Hatch, Lionel Barrymore as the evil, infamous Mr. Potter, Thomas Mitchell as Uncle Billy, Henry Travers as Clarence. Take me back, Clarence. I want to live again. So, as I said, it is the story of a guardian angel sent back to help a desperate businessman try to, prevent his suicide, basically, showing him what his life would be like if he had never been born, and just all the people that he affected over the years and whatnot. So, George Bailey spent his entire life giving of himself to the people of Bedford Falls. He always longed to travel, but never had the opportunity in order to prevent rich skinflint Mr. Potter from taking over the entire town. All that prevents him from doing so is George's modest building and loan company, which was founded by his generous father. But on Christmas Eve, George's Uncle Billy loses the business's $8,000 while intending to deposit it in the bank. Mr. Potter finds the misplaced money and hides it. While the bank examiner discovers the shortage later that night, George realizes that he will probably be held responsible and sent to jail. and the company will collapse, allowing Mr. Potter to take over. Thinking of his wife Mary and their 4 children, and the others he loves will be better off without him. He contemplates suicide, but the prayers of his loved ones result in his guardian angel named Clarence Oddbody. I never knew Clarence had a last name. Clarence Oddbody coming to Earth to help him with the promises of earning his wings. So yeah, there's a very nice scene where God is talking to Clarence. It's like, you're finally going to get your wings, Clarence. You just got to help George out. And then there's the touching thing where they find the book. It's like, Dear George, remember, nobody is ever a failure who has friends. Thanks for the wings, Clarence. So throughout this, you get it's quite a long movie. You get the whole history of George growing up as a child and losing hearing in his one ear, saving his brother from drowning.
Yep.
His brother goes on to become a war hero. Just a lot of little stories that just show just who George Bailey is.
And I think too, now I'm just thinking of this now, but it's basically like a reverse Christmas Carol, where you have, instead of the rich asshole getting the treatment of like be better, it's the Bob Cratchit character getting the, okay, you know what, you're doing the best you can type of moment, to help save him and get him through the holidays.
Yes. So as all this is going on, George is like on the bridge out of town, getting ready to jump, where his wife, his Uncle Billy, and all the people in the town have realized what's going on, because the people are at his house waiting to arrest him. They've got the people there, and like they go all over town collecting this money to get George out of trouble. And it is a very, very heartwarming, very touching thing that, that honestly I don't think would ever really take place in this day and age. It is not really believable. At least, I guess I've been Scrooged.
Also a great movie.
Yes. So like there's so many that last, I'd say 15 minutes is probably the most iconic.
Yeah.
Mary did it, George. Mary did it. She went all over town saying George Bailey's in trouble, and they came and ran out with their money.
Yeah, it's sad, I think, Wayne, that we have to turn to movies to see the good in people a lot of the times, and I think that's definitely the case in this movie. Like you said, you don't really see it being realistic, because people coming together and helping each other is this almost a fantasy, I think, that we kind of create for ourselves, that we think it should happen. Now we do get to see it happen, from time to time, and it's always very great to watch it.
Yeah.
But it definitely, I think, watching movies and TV shows growing up, it felt like it would happen a lot more, and it just doesn't happen as much.
Yeah, well, I mean, and, you've got like GoFundMe campaigns, and you get the tragic backstories about things that happen. It's like, it shouldn't be other common people coming together. It should be a realization of a situation that someone is in, and well, maybe we can do something in regards to this, because we're a major billion-dollar corporation. Maybe we don't have to fuck over the little guy.
Right, but, exactly.
Greed is all consuming. So, but anyway, yes, 1946. It's a Wonderful Life. I've never met anyone who has not seen it. So if you have not seen it, you're one of our listeners, I encourage you to give it a watch. It is a little bit of a slog, but I think it's definitely worth it.
No, it's really good. I only just saw it recently for the last couple of years for the first time. I knew it's one of those movies, I feel like if you haven't seen it and you're our age growing up, you kind of have seen it probably just through media, through The Simpsons, through anybody.
It's on a Christmas movie that they're watching.
Right, exactly. So like, even if you haven't seen this movie, chances are you probably know this movie. And if you watch it and go, oh yeah, I actually feel like I've seen this before, it's because it's made its way into our culture. And what's great about this movie too, Wayne, is it was a box office disaster. It made no money back in 1946. And it basically, they had to beg people to take it, to air it on TV. I think it was, I want to remember, it was like the 70s that it started showing up in rotation. And that's what made the movie a hit, was that people finally got to watch it. And they're like, oh my God, this movie's actually really fucking good. Yeah. And it took that long to find its audience. So it goes to show you too, that just over time, the right movies are going to find their audience and live on forever, essentially. And that's what this movie's going to do.
It's just like the definition of what a cult classic is.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. It took the people to make it popular. And that's, Box office doesn't always mean everything. So I think it's nice that you have these little heroic stories from that time. All
Yep.
right, so I'm gonna definitely go to a movie that probably most people haven't seen that are listening right now. Uh,
Really, shocker.
called Yeah, I know. It goes by a few names. Deadly Games is what it's been released at now. Also is called Dial Code Santa Claus, Game Over, and Hide and Freak. It's a 1989 French horror thriller film written and directed by Rene Manzor. It is noted for its similarities to the 90 American film Home Alone, though this one actually came out first. They threatened legal action against John Hughes and the Home Alone people, but I think there's a lot. We always talk about movies that sometimes they get very similar or made around the same time. People just have the same idea. Home Alone didn't come out until 1990, but Home Alone was not in production, for 5 months. It was in production probably for over a year. So the idea had been around obviously way before the movie had come out. All right, I'll give you a little bit of a backstory here. Thomas D. Fremont, a child prodigy obsessed with tinkering and action films, lives in a secluded and high-tech castle with his widowed mother, Julie, his diabetic and partially blind grandfather, Pappy, and his pet dog, Pappy, and his pet dog, JR. On Christmas Eve, Thomas uses the Minitel to try and communicate with Santa Claus. That's why it was called Dial Code Santa, because you would dial it and you could talk to Santa Claus. And unknowingly makes contact with a local derelict who is using a public Minitel terminal. So the Minitel is it's like a phone booth, but it's like the internet before the internet, if that makes sense to anybody. And you could reach out to anybody. So the vagabond gets a job as a Santa at Printeps, but is fired from it after Julie witnesses him slap a child who had accused him of not being the real Santa. The vagrant subsequently steals a Santa suit, paints his hair and beard white, and hitches a ride to Julie's home in back of a delivery van, the driver of which he kills upon reaching the D. Fremont residence. The man then murders Julie's groundskeeper and her chef, breaks into her home through the chimney, and stabs JR to death in the front of Thomas, who is convinced that the intruder is an enraged Santa Claus. So you have this little boy who basically has to fend his mom's at work, so he's got to fend off this who he believes to be the real Santa Claus, breaking into his house and murdering everybody. And so it goes into a Home Alone style, he's got all these traps, he's got all these toys and stuff that he uses to defend against this Santa Claus. It's a crazy movie. It's one of those kind of unearthed classics. You used to be able to find it on Shudder. I'm not sure if it's still on Shudder right now. But you can get the Blu-ray. It's out there. It'll probably, if it's not on Shudder yet, it'll probably be back on Shudder for the holidays, I would imagine. But definitely check this one out. When I watched it a year or two ago for the first time, it's a crazy fucking movie, man. Deadly Games. It's fun for me to watch something like a Santa Claus going around trying to murder people. I don't know. I just like it. It's enjoyable. I love Christmas movies overall, just in general. So just having that aspect, putting horror into it, definitely works for me. All right, Wayne, what's your next one?
All right, we're gonna go with 2016's Christmas movie, Office Christmas Party. When his uptight CEO sister threatens to shut down his branch, the branch manager throws an epic Christmas party in order to land a big client, save the day. But the party gets way out of hand. Directors are Josh Gordon and Will Speck. Writers are John Lucas, Scott Moore, and Timothy Dowling. Starring Jason Bateman as Josh Parker, Olivia Munn as Tracy Hughes, T.J. Miller as Clay Vanstone, Jennifer Aniston as Carol Vanstone, the uptight CEO. Kate McKinnon, Courtney B. Vance, Jillian Bell. I mean, if it's got Rob Corddry in it, I'm in, right? I mean, come
Yes.
on.
That's true.
Karan Stoney, Randall Park, Vanessa Baylor.
It's got a huge cast, yeah.
And there's cameos galore that pop
Yep.
up.
And Jillian Bell is hilarious as this female pimp. She is fantastic.
Doesn't God, the guy who used to be on the Bulls, make an appearance? Jimmy Butler, right?
Yes, Jimmy Butler is in it. He's one of the celebrities they're trying to get to donate money or whatever, or join the firm, be a client. Yeah, that's right. I forgot he was in that. Yeah, that's very very funny end sequence with the giant party, the giant Christmas party.
Yes, there's lots of drugs and cocaine involved, and it's just if you're in the mood for something a little bit raunchy and hilarious and Christmas themed, I think this has got to be one of your go tos. I cannot, just even thinking about it right now is
Yep.
hilarious. So JT Miller is the branch manager. He is the sister of Jennifer Aniston, and then the chief technical officer, played by Bateman, Jason
Jason.
Bateman, not Justine, his sister. Wow, that's a weird, weird stumble. Yeah, just good, just hilarious. From reindeers drinking out of the toilet,
Yeah.
just dancing snowmen, and not real snowmen. Obviously, there is no magic hat
Yes.
they found. Just really, really good. Just nothing too serious, nothing too sad. Just
Yeah. It fits right into the category of a very Harold and Kumar Christmas, or the night before with Seth Rogen and Anthony Mackie and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which I think came out right around the same time.
yes, that was actually on my list that I wanted to talk about. But I know we spent a pretty good time talking
We,
about that one,
we did.
and we may have talked about this one too. So
We may have. Again, like I
just
said,
as we're on this topic, though, I mean, I was looking through Facebook memories and that's how we advertise the show, or promote, if you will.
yeah.
Sorry, we're legit business people. 2 years ago, this is what we were talking about. I'm like, huh,
Yep.
720 or 700, 2 years ago. It's like, wow, okay, cool.
Yeah, man.
And just so everybody knows, 2 years ago, we talked about Jingle Jangle this week.
Oh, it's a good one. That's
Yep.
another one. We're not gonna. I'm not. I wasn't planning on talking about it, but I know we've recommended it a few times.
Yes.
Check that one, guys, out on Netflix. Pretty good story. But Office Christmas Party, yeah, it's one of those ones that I didn't see in theaters, but I saw it when it came out on home video or digital or whatever. And I really liked it. It's very funny. The cast is great. Bateman, T.J. Miller are really funny in it. Olivia Munn, I like her a lot, so that made it easy to like her character. Jennifer Aniston, it's always fun to see her kind of play these it's almost like an extended cameo role, like her horrible boss's role, where she plays these kind of just brash characters. And this one, she's honestly probably the more level-headed character.
Yeah.
um, but as TJ Miller's the one running through all the money in the company, she's really just trying to hey, maybe we don't want to be out of business by the end of the year. So she's more the logical one, I guess. But the whole idea is that they haven't had fun on Christmas in a long time, so that's kind of what he's trying to get out of her. But yeah, it's a good movie. I think people should check it out if you somehow skipped it. It's not amazing or anything, but it's a very fun holiday watch. Very short. Kate McKinnon is great as the buttoned up office manager. She's really really funny as usual anyway. So she was really good in that. But yeah, definitely check that one out. Good recommendation from Wayne there. All right, so I'm gonna go with another one that I know I've talked about a number of times, but I want people to watch it. I'm planning on watching it this holiday season. It's called Happiest Season.
Yes.
See, Wayne likes it as well. Directed and written by Clea Duvall, also written by Mary Holland, who's one of the actors in the film. Starring Kristen Stewart, Mackenzie Davis, Allison Brie, Aubrey Plaza, Dan Levy, Mary Holland, Victor Garber, and Mary Steenburgen. So, Abby Holland and Harper Caldwell are a couple who have been dating nearly a year. Abby has disliked Christmas since her parents died, so Harper spontaneously invites her to celebrate the holidays with her family in her hometown. Abby sees this as the perfect opportunity to introduce herself to Harper's parents and propose to her on Christmas morning. However, on their way to the Caldwells, Harper reveals she lied about already coming out to her parents, fearing it would interfere with her father's mayoral campaign. She promises to come out to her family after Christmas, but asks Abby to pretend to be her straight roommate for the holiday, to which Abby reluctantly agrees. So you have this romance that's set up at the beginning between Kristen Stewart and Mackenzie Davis's characters, and it's off to kind of we get to meet them in a very loving moment in the beginning of the film, and then as they're on their car ride, it's a very rocky start where she has to basically also pretend essentially to not to be in the closet, but put their relationship in the closet. So it puts Kristen Stewart's character in a tough spot. I love the cast of this movie. I loved how this movie worked together. I thought Mackenzie and Kristen Stewart had great chemistry. Everybody's really funny. Dan Levy is hilarious in this film. Is it it's Eugene Levy, right? Yeah, so
Eugene
Dan Levy.
Levy.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember how to say his name correctly. Um, but the parents are great. It's you have Alison Brie who just seems to kind of be like the utility player when it comes to movies because like all of a sudden you'll be watching a film like I remember watching Lincoln. I mean, like, wait a minute, is that Alison Brie? It's just like she just kind of pops up everywhere. She's really good as the kind of uppity sister. Um, yeah,
One of
it's
the
just
reasons I'm sorry, just totally jumping in
yeah,
here.
go ahead.
Aubrey Plaza's character and just her role in this,
Mm-hmm.
I really, really appreciated because there's obviously that interest when there's some friction between the two main
Yeah.
characters.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of it being like cheat and then we got to apologize and work this out, it's like, I get it. And,
Yeah. No.
definitely attraction
Yeah.
here and whatnot. But,
I
you know,
think. Well, you bring up a good point. I think what works with this movie is they avoid the cliches. There aren't a lot of the typical rom com type of cliches that you would have, and they do a really good job of getting past those. This is definitely in the vein of like another movie I've talked about a lot, The Family Stone, or also Home for the Holidays with Holly Hunter. It's very dysfunctional, even like a Meet the Parents. Meet the Parents is another good example because you can kind of put Ben Stiller and Kristen Stewart's character kind of in the same position as they're like, one is trying to gain approval and the other one's trying to, still love their partner without, drawing any undue attention. Um, and they're both living in the basement. I think that's what really made me think about it. But yeah, it's just a really really fun movie, really good, really well done. Everyone's great in it. It's on Hulu. It's a Hulu original at this point, I believe. I wish they would do a home video release, as everybody knows I love to buy my Blu-rays. I would gladly have a Blu-ray with special features and all that.
we
Um,
love your dead technology, sir.
yeah, I know. Everyone tells me, but
I
it's
appreciate it because I can get stuff that I can't find anywhere else.
right,
From
and
you.
there's some movies that you can't stream, so it's nice to have them on home video. Um, home video. I sound like I worked at Blockbuster, which
Be
I should.
kind, rewind, bro.
I use those rewinder decks many times. So yeah, that's again another just good recommendation for Happy Season. If you yet to watch it, on my recommendation, watch it this year. It's definitely a fun one to watch around the holidays. All right, Wayne, what's your final one that you want to talk about?
All right. I was going to go with 2019's Last Christmas, one of the first movies we reviewed. I think it was in the first month,
Yeah,
but
it was right. Yep.
it is a great one. But since it's Thanksgiving and, everybody always complains that we rush the season, we rush Thanksgiving, let's talk about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. 1987, two of the titans of comedy, if you will, and Steve Martin and John Candy. And there's a smorgasbord of other people I will touch on in just a second. But we're talking John Hughes. A Chicago advertising man must struggle to travel home from New York for Thanksgiving with a lovable oaf of a shower curtain ring salesman as his only companion. Written and directed by John Hughes. Steve Martin plays Neil Page. John Candy plays Del Griffith. Layla Robbins plays Susan Page, obviously husband and wife. Michael McKean, the epic state trooper. You know, Kevin Bacon, Dylan Baker.
All very minor roles. It's really a two-person movie for the most part.
Yeah. Matthew Lawrence, one of the Lawrence brothers, has a role
Yep.
in this. But yeah, it's definitely Steve Martin and John Candy's party.
Yeah, like Kevin Bacon, I always forget when I watch that movie that he's the guy that steals Steve Martin's cab in the beginning of in the movie, and that literally his only role, his only part of the film. That's it. But funny role, funny part.
All that Neil Page wants to do is to get home for Thanksgiving. His flight has been canceled due to bad weather, so he decides on other means of transportation. As well as bad luck, Neil is blessed with the presence of Del Griffith, shower curtain ring salesman, and all around blabbermouth who is never short of advice, conversation, bad jokes, or company. And when he decides that he is going the same direction as Neil, stuff happens.
Yep, basically.
Yeah. So, they rent a car, it catches fire. They're on a train. The train breaks down, and they gotta, you know, haul their luggage. Um, they have to share a tiny bed in a hotel room.
Yep.
Oh, I slept fine. I had my hand between these two pillows. Those aren't pillows. And then the epic, oh gosh, monologue from John Candy. You know what? I like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always like me.
It's another one that's very emotional. It's a very
Mhm.
emotional film, especially when you find out the twist
Yes.
in the film. So I think it's one of those ones I had seen bits and pieces of it, but just recently, within the last couple of years, I watched it all the way through. I really like it. I don't think it's necessarily hilarious like a lot of people have been explaining to me, but again, it's just really well done. It's a very emotional film, I think, at its core, about loneliness, about grief.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more going on there, I think, than this movie gets credit for.
Yeah.
It's just really, really well done. And again, it's Steve Martin and John Candy, two of my favorites for 2 hours. It's just can't doesn't really get any better than that when you think about that.
We don't really have a lot of Thanksgiving movies either.
You
It's kind of
don't. I'm gonna get into one, but you don't. You really don't. I was actually gonna leave it as an extra, but I'm gonna talk about since you brought this one up. I'm gonna talk about it specifically.
extra,
Um,
extra.
yes. So I will mention an honorable mention for myself: Silent Night, Deadly Night, 1 and 2. Also, Silent Night, the remake. Good Santa Claus killer movies. Crazy guy dresses up as Santa Claus, kills people. Um, and then the second one is just terrible, but it has so many great one-liners and it's so cheesy that people love it. So, my third and final film is going to be one that I discovered probably like 5-6 years ago, Wayne, and it looks like that's when the Blu-ray DVD release came out, so that makes sense. So, it is called Blood Rage. Todd and Terry are identical twin brothers. One night at a drive-in theater in 1974, young Terry sees his mother Maddie and her date begin kissing inside the car. Upset that his mother is back at it again, it's in quotes, he wakes his brother and they sneak out of the car. Apparently triggered by his mother's promiscuity, Terry takes a hatchet and murders a teenager having sex with his girlfriend in the backseat of the car, then frames Todd by smearing blood onto him and placing the hatchet into his hand. Todd, too traumatized to speak in his own defense, is found guilty and committed to an asylum. 10 years later, in 1984, now adult Terry lives happily with his mother in a sprawling but secluded apartment complex named Shadow Woods. On Thanksgiving Day, Terry's long dormant murderous rage is revived when his mother gets engaged to fiance Brad, who owns the complex. Terry also learns that his twin brother Todd, whom he framed for murder a decade earlier, has escaped from his mental hospital and may be heading home. Terry murders Brad by chopping his right hand, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to go into all the details. He plans on obviously framing his twin brother, Todd, yet again. So it's a great performance from the lead actor. Let me get his name real quick because there's not really anybody famous in this movie. But Mark Soper, who plays both the twins, Todd and Terry, does a really good job of kind of going back and forth between evil and not evil. As again, the one that's been in prison did not murder anybody, so he's not evil, and he's kind of trying to like warn people that his brother's a psychopath. And so it's a slasher film. It's one of the, like Wayne said, there aren't many Thanksgiving films. It is definitely one of those Thanksgiving horror films that are very rare out there. It's really since it hit Blu-ray in 2015 from Arrow. That's when it's really kind of become a classic that horror fans watch around Thanksgiving nowadays. It's really, really fun movie. Very bloody, very gory, just the kind of stuff that I like. The killer, again, when you have a movie like this, the guy playing the killer has to be good, and Mark Soper does a really good job in this film. So I definitely recommend checking out um, this film, and it should be. I think it's on Arrow, the app, if you have the Arrow app, which I do. All right, so one more movie, obviously, that we're going to talk about before we get to our next segment, and
Spoilers.
and that is the 1983 classic A Christmas Story, directed by Bob Clark, based on Gene Shepard's semi-fictional anecdotes in his 1966 book In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash, um, with some elements from his 1971 book Wanda Hickey's Night of Garden Memories and Other Disasters. I didn't know any of that, so whatever.
Nope.
Um, All right, so it stars Melinda Dillon, Darren McGavin, and Peter Billingsley, along with Zach Ward too, who's an actor, a character actor that I think people would probably recognize. All right, so Christmas Story. Give you the quick synopsis if people don't know what it is. Set in December 1940, the film is presented in a series of vignettes with narration provided by adult Ralphie Parker, reminiscing on one particular Christmas when he was 9 years old in Hammond, Indiana. Ralphie wanted only one thing that Christmas: a Red Ryder carbine action 200 shot range model air rifle. Ralphie's desire is rejected by his mother, his teacher, Miss Shields, and even a Santa Claus at Higbee's department store, all giving him the same warning: "You'll shoot your eye out." If anyone's seen that, that's one of the famous lines from the movie, obviously.
You'll shoot your eye out. You'll shoot your eye out.
On Christmas morning, Ralphie gets a giant pink bunny suit, but he also gets the rifle at some point. And then shoots his glasses off. All right, so Christmas Story. We've talked about this movie, I think, a little bit, just in the fact that I think we both like this movie, but it's not one of our personal favorites, so we've never really dove into it. But we figured with the new movie coming out that we would do so. So I mean, if you're alive, I feel like you've probably seen this movie, right, Wayne?
Again, yeah, if you have never actually sat down and watched it all the way through, you've seen snippets of it on the screens of other movies you've watched during the
Yes,
holidays.
or on TBS if someone just happened to leave it on during a Christmas that you were at somebody's house or something, because they play it, I believe, 24 hours that day or Christmas
Yes.
Eve maybe. Um, it. As I was watching the new one, I was kind of reminded of what the original felt like, and I still like it. I think it's a fun movie. It's a fun kids movie. I think Peter Billingsley was a good child actor. He did a good job in the movie as Ralphie. I like all the other little kids too, Schwartz and the Flick, the one who gets his tongue stuck on the metal pole.
Funny thing about that is the actor that plays Flick is Scott Schwartz, but the actor that plays Schwartz is not a Schwartz at
No,
all. It's R.D. Rob is the
which
name
I
that's
thought,
playing.
you're right. That was confusing to me because I knew him as Scott Schwartz. So in the new movie, when they kept calling him saying Schwartz, I kept expecting to see Scott Schwartz on the screen. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know what else really to say. The movie's a classic. Everybody knows it. The lamp, the leg lamp, and the
Agile. It's
yeah,
Italian.
yes. Darren McGavin is fantastic in it as the dad. He's so good. You had the soap scene where he said fudge.
What?
He's gonna, but fudge was not the word that I said. Yeah, just lots of really good scenes. The scene where he gets the best of Zach Ward's character, the bully. It's just a really
What Farkas?
Farkas. Yeah, it's a really fun film. So I was interested to see what they would do with the next one. Wayne, any final thoughts on A Christmas Story before we get into the next segment?
It is a classic. Like you said, it's not our favorite, but it's just, I guess, tradition at this point. I
Yeah.
don't actively watch it, but if it's on, I'll probably leave it. I did actually watch this last night after watching
Oh,
the
okay.
sequel. So just because I felt obligated, if you will,
Yes.
and I had time because I wasn't sleepy. So
Yes, for sure. All right. So let's get into our next segment, review.
of the week, we review the film.
Good one. All right. So we have A Christmas Story Christmas, directed by Clay Cadis, written by Nick Schenk and Clay Cadis, story by Nick Schenk and Peter Billingsley, based on characters but created by Gene Shepard, starring Peter Billingsley, Aaron Hayes, Scott Schwartz, R.D. Robb, Zach Ward, Julie Haggerty. So what I first off to talk about this movie, I do like the fact, Wayne, this is another what you would call a legacy sequel. You get a lot of the main cast back, which is interesting because some of them aren't even acting anymore.
Yeah,
So
it's
go ahead.
it is just it's really a tribute film to the late Darren McGavin. When
Yes,
you
it
break it
is.
all down,
Yep, for sure.
everybody pretty much pops up from the first one in some way or is referenced in some way. I as I touched on earlier, I had thoughts, and I actually loved this. I
Yep.
absolutely loved it. I actually appreciated this one more than the original Christmas Story because of just, I guess it was, I got caught up in the feels and the sentiment of what the story is about, and just what Ralph is going through.
Yep, it's another one about grief. I mean, it's sad to think, but like grief is something I think a lot of people deal with around the holidays because that's when you remember, your loved ones that have passed away. And in this case, the plot of the movie is Ralphie's kind of struggling with his wife and two kids, and they're getting ready to celebrate Christmas, and they're in Chicago, and then they get the grandparents are going to come up. They get the word that the dad has passed away, so then they
Mhm.
have to go back home to Indiana, and that's where you start to see Flick and Schwartz. We do get a little bit of Ralphie's brother. He on the phone at some point, and then he does come towards the end of the movie. We do
Randy.
Yes, we do get a scene with Zach Ward as Fargus, which I thought was great. I wish,
Amazing, amazing that what they did with that,
yeah, it
because I'm
was
not
it was
saying
really good.
anything because I want you to see just how they portray it,
Yep.
and um,
It
just
was different. It was not what I expected. I thought
yes,
so. Right away, I'm going to say this. You were talking Home Alone. We reviewed last year, I think it was, and it was awful. The new Home Alone movie. That one tried too much to be like a reboot, but it was still within the universe. This is a really good sequel because it's not doing the same things, or if it does some of the same things, that's kind of the joke about it. Like
right.
the bullies, like that was one thing that had happened with Ralphie, but it's not the same as it was before.
Yeah.
Some of
This
the other scenes are not the same. Go ahead.
the original one takes place in the 1940s or 1940. This one takes place in
1940, it said, yeah.
1973. 1973. So it's not like now time. It's like
Yeah.
when our parents were children.
Yes, exactly.
So
Yeah, you couldn't do it like, yeah, because Ralphie would be like fucking old, so they had to like do it because it was made in the '80s, obviously. So Peter
yeah,
Billingsley is probably I would say in his early '50s, so he's playing a bit younger here. Aaron Hayes, I've always liked Aaron Hayes, so they cast her as his wife. I thought she did a nice job in this. I thought she was very funny. They did a
yeah.
lot of things to her where she's just constantly like falling over. Also, the joke too of
I really am an athlete.
yeah,
Once I'm on the ice, it's great. I can do tricks.
she was so good. And then but the whole joke too is that like everybody else in the family gets hurt but Ralphie. Like that, they kind of because he's the one that got hurt in the first movie, so they reverse it. Where
Yeah.
oh my god, the scene with the daughter and the snowball was that the way they cut that together was hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing. It was so funny. And then even the scene with the brother too was really funny in the sledding and everybody being hammered drunk sledding. Like they're just and also too, this is a PG rated movie. They pushed the envelope for a PG film. Someone says "son of a bitch" in the movie.
I'm a bitch.
So they do. They kind of made it like a traditional PG movie way that we're used to, that we grew up on, where you could kind of the language could be a little saucier. You could have it. You could go a little further. So I did appreciate that as well. And the HBO Max / Warner Brothers / Discovery / whoever the fuck owns them next week let them
Yeah.
do that. So I thought that was a fun, an interesting way to. It's just talking about the rating, but like just the fact that they were able to get away with a little bit more this time around.
It just and they touch on about how much old man Parker was always like emphatic about
Yeah.
Christmas and how special he always wanted to make it, and you know Ralphie like struggling to take up that mantle. And he actually does a great job when the time to get presents, and they take him
Yep.
to Higbee's, and he gets all the shopping done, only for something to happen,
Yes.
and it looks like the family's going to be without presents, and so they
Yes.
have to break it
There
down. It's
is
like,
yeah.
Christmas is about spirit and not so much about gifts. And it's like, oh, this sucks. Where's Christmas ever? But
Yep.
then, of course, there's a little spin at the end that we're not going to talk about. Well, I'm not
Yep.
going to talk about because I
No,
want
we
you to
won't.
watch.
Yeah, we won't spoil it.
And it's just like, hmm, the
Yeah,
feels.
there was a lot more emotional stuff in this film than I expected.
My
I
cup of feels overfloweth.
Yes, yeah, it was really well done. I think for what it was trying to do, it hit every mark. It was great to see those old characters come back. Um, watching Scott. So people that don't know this, Scott Schwartz actually went on to be a minor adult film star for a little while after his Christmas Story acting days throughout the '90s. So it's interesting to see him kind of come back and be in a movie that's everyone's got their clothes on. But I think it was the whole thing. Every time they would bring a character back, I was like, is that the same fucking guy from the first movie? And I'm like, yes, it is. Well, holy shit. Like, they got all of them to come back essentially. Except for the mom, who I think the mom is like almost 90. So I'm not surprised that they needed someone a little bit younger. I mean, I don't think she's acted in like 20 years. So,
Yeah, but the casting was pretty good. I'm like, wait, is that? No, that's not.
right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Close enough. Really good job.
Yeah, no, it did. It did a really good. Yeah, even the new people that were replacing some of the old characters did a really good job. I'm a big Zach Ward fan, so I would have liked to see him a little bit more. He's been in some like low budget movies and stuff that I've liked him in and stuff, and I think the first Transformers film too. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, overall, I had a really good time with it. It was really fun, a really good Christmas movie. I think it'll be one that gets watched with the first one. It's a good sequel that you could put up with that first movie, Wayne. I think could do a combo watch every year around this time. So I
I
would
will plan
definitely,
on it for
yeah,
sure.
I would. For me, it was like a 7.5 out of 10. I enjoyed it. There were some moments where I was questioning a few things. I also would have loved a Vince Vaughn cameo. As people may not know, Peter Billingsley and Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau started their producing careers together. They all produced Made, with that Favreau directed, and Vince Vaughn and him have been producing movies for a long time. He was one of the producers on the Iron Man films. Peter Billingsley was. He's in the Iron Man films. He's also in Spider-Man: Far From Home as one of the main villains. So if younger audiences are like, I think I recognize that guy, that's where he's from. So I would have loved a little Vince Vaughn cameo. I think that would have been cool. But I get they didn't want to distract. They wanted the movie to feel like the movie, and that was the other thing I would say too, Wayne, is the movie felt like a Christmas Story movie. The dream sequences that he would have, all that stuff, it all felt like you were watching another movie within this series, and I thought that was really cool. And the fact that Billingsley's voice now kind of sounds like the adult guy that did his voice back in the 80s. It worked. It worked for me. So
All the little fantasy flashbacks felt like a Christmas story.
yes, exactly. Right. All right. What's your final rating, Wayne?
Oh, I got to go 8 out of 10 for sure.
Yeah, very very fun, good time. Everybody should watch it. If you're a fan of the original, or if not, if you got kids, they'll like it today. I think I think kids will enjoy it.
But definitely check it out on HBO Max.
Yes, for sure. And I think the original is also on there, so you can do a dual watch there. All right, Wayne. Let's get into stuff we've watched this week. Anything you want to talk about?
Well, I watched the first 2 episodes of Yellowstone season 5, and
Same.
to be 100% honest, wasn't blown away by it. But we'll see how it goes.
I still love it, but I mean, sometimes some of the seasons start a little slower, so it's gonna take some time, I think, to get into the season. But
yeah,
they got to they kind of got to set everything up again. So
yeah, went through and watched 1883, the prequel to Yellowstone,
yep.
And I believe they got 1903. I think is the next
1923.
23. Okay.
Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren, of all people. It starts December 18th. Yeah, that one's gonna be. It's who were the two people in the last one?
Faith Hill and Tim McGraw.
Yeah, it's them but older. So it's that's who they're playing. Yeah, but it's the start of the ranch actually, or it's they're on the ranch.
Yeah. Get off my covered wagon.
Basically. I'm sure Harrison Ford's going to want to be dead by the end of the series, so he doesn't have to ever come back for it. I'll only do it if you kill me. God damn it. Yeah, I like the first prequel series. I'm looking forward to this one, and I know there's a spin-off series coming with what's his name, the one ranch hand that left to go to Texas, Jimmy. Is going to have his own show. So
I love Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy's great. Yeah,
it was fantastic.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry. At the end of season 4, when they all show up to see him off, it's like, oh, they love him.
Yeah, because he was always kind of looked on as a dumbass, but he gained the respect, I think.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any movies or anything?
I want to be Rip Wheeler when I grow up. I've decided.
My wife would also like if I was a Red Wheeler.
Maybe without all the murder, but hey, whatever.
I think she'd be okay with that for me.
Omelet,
Um,
eggs, hey.
all right. So I also watched Yellowstone, but I watched Where the Crawdads Sing, which is on Netflix now. It's a Sony movie, pretty decent. I think people will like that one. Don't Worry, Darling. I wasn't as a big fan of that one. I thought Florence Pugh was amazing, though. She was great in it, but the movie itself, eh. The Wonder, however, with Florence Pugh, fantastic. Definitely recommend that one. That one's on Netflix. Check it out. Smile finally hit Paramount Plus. I watched that. I liked Smile. I didn't love it like a lot of people were loving it. Definitely a good movie though. I think if you like The Ring, watch Smile. You'll like it. And I say that people are like, "Oh, he doesn't like The Ring." The Ring is not one of my favorites, but it follows in that same kind of horror film. So people will like it. I think if they like The Ring. Um, Speaking of Christmas movies, we watched Falling for Christmas, the Lindsay Lohan Netflix Christmas film. Cheesy, goofy, weird, but if you like those types of Christmas movies, it works. I watched Significant Other last night with one of my favorite horror actresses of the moment, which is Mika Monroe. She's been doing it for a while now, since It Follows and The Guest back like 7, 8 years ago now. Um, that was good. I liked it. It's a good sci-fi horror film. Check that one out also on Paramount Plus. It's a Paramount Plus original. And then we watched another Netflix one, Christmas with You, with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Amy Garcia. Actually, I like this one. I'm not even going to say this one was like cheesy. It was actually a good Christmas movie. I do recommend people watching it on Netflix, Christmas with You. It's kind of like Marry Me, the J-Lo movie, where like she ends up falling for like a normal guy, but the circumstances are different. So definitely check that out. Yeah, so that's really all that I've watched lately. I'm going to get into the news and notes, and then we'll wrap this baby up. So, news and notes. Half Baked 2 happening with Rachel True and Harlan Williams returning. Will focus on Chappelle's character's son and be straight to VOD. Dave Chappelle and Jim Brewer obviously will not be returning. Uh, Squid Game Emmy winner Lee Young Jae joined Star Wars The Acolyte, one of many actors to be in that series. Lionsgate has asked for Kevin Smith to make Red State 2, so he's been talking about that. Lionsgate adapting Streets of Rage video game into a movie. Joseph Quinn from Game of Thrones and Stranger Things joins Lupita Nyong'o in A Quiet Place Day One. Jonah Hill writing and directing sci-fi film called Outcome starring Keanu Reeves. James Wan and Jason Blum, the producers and owners of their own company. James Wan owns Atomic Monster, and Jason Blum owns Blumhouse Productions. They're thinking of merging. Rumor: Kurt Russell may return for Escape to New York sequel from Scream directors, the new Scream directors. Quentin Tarantino's next project will be an 8-episode TV series that he will shoot next year. Sony and Marvel team with MGM/Prime Video for Spider-Man spin-off series. There'll be many of them, but Silk will be the first one that they do. Vincent D'Onofrio officially returning as Wilson Fisk in the animated series Spider-Man Freshman Year. He's already returned in the Hawkeye series, and he'll also be in the Daredevil series, but he'll also be in the Spider-Man animated series, so that'll be fun. Bradley Cooper is Frank Bullitt in Steven Spielberg's new adaptation of the novel Mute Witness, also titled Bullitt, as was the Steve McQueen adaptation in the 70s. So Cooper will be stepping into that Steve McQueen role. Channing Tatum to star in James Bond-like spy film from director David Leitch. Simon Kinberg came up with the story. HBO renews The White Lotus for a third season. Game of Thrones animated film on the way, says George R.R. Martin. Releases coming up. I only got one that I came across this week. Bel Air Season 2 debuts February 23rd, 2023 on Peacock. Deaths this week. John Aniston, father of Jennifer, an actor on Days of Our Lives, dead at 89. Kimberly Herron, Playboy Playmate and Ghostbusters actress, dead at 65. Robert Clary, Hogan's Heroes and Real Life Auschwitz survivor, dead at 96. B. Smith, R&B singer, dead at 30. There's some sad news today as both Jason David Frank from the Power Rangers died by suicide at 49. He was the Green Ranger. He played Tommy on the Power Rangers. And Nikki Acox from Supernatural died at the age of 47 from cancer. So some sad news there for everyone that's fans of those people. Wayne and I, we grew up on Power Rangers. I assume you did, as I did. Um,
Yep.
I only probably watched it for a couple years, but Tommy, played by Jason David Frank, was definitely a big kind of icon, I guess, in that at that age range for me.
Yeah,
Um,
and he was one of the ones that they brought back several times in the different Power
he
Ranger.
did, yeah, yeah, and he did all the cons, and he's taught people like jujitsu or whatever. I don't know exactly which martial art he taught, but so it's very sad. And again, it was suicide. So if you're out there and you're having thoughts, get help, people. Mental health is nothing to fuck with. So and the other, Nikki Acox, if you watch Supernatural, she was a character on that show and just to die of cancer at a young age of 47. Very, very sad. Um, yeah, so that's our show for this week. Sorry to kind of end on a down note. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Wayne, any thoughts?
Well, we're through two of the main holidays. We got the next big one coming up in about a month. So, happy holidays to all of you. I hope it is a tremendous holiday season for you. And, we very much appreciate everybody who takes the time out of their day, out of their week, just listening to us jabber on and make stupid jokes. So, we appreciate you, and you are very much appreciated.
My drinks are fucking brilliant, man. Um, can't believe it's already almost Christmas, which is insane. But again, everybody enjoy their holiday, and thank you for listening to another episode of Now Showing with Mike and Wayne.
Ronald Reagan, the actor?
Hasta la vista, baby.
Hey, everybody, we're all gonna get laid.